storytelling wine supplier of Breda, and I've got some glory. And tonight I will. Yes. That's
Or you have to shut. Doesn't smell like Chinese anymore.
Maar ik ben het niet meer Chinees zo.
Nee,
Ik kan namelijk wel de Chinese zijn.
Oh, nee. The company of Nils is called Bivino.
Yes, which
You
means
see that name? It's
baby vino and then compressed. It's imperative to drink wine. So tonight we're going to do Italy, one of my favorite countries in the world, and I will try to explain you a little bit about the country itself, its tradition, its culture, and its effect on wine. The first thing, what is interesting about Italy, it's the diversity. It has been a unified country for less than, I think, 120 years. So in the past, there were all small kingdoms or parts of other countries. As a result, each region has stick very much to its own tradition with grape varieties. In Italy, I think there are about 1,000 native grape varieties, which is unrivaled anywhere in Europe. So there's a massive difference between grapes you find in Piemonte, Sicily, Sardinia, name it wherever. And that's what makes the country very interesting. The second thing very interesting about Italy is the climate. Since it's a very small country, most of the vineyards are either close to the sea or to mountains. In the center you have the entire center of Italy consists of mountains. So you will always have, wherever you have a vineyard, either the sea close by or mountains. And the reason why that's important, wine needs sun, but it also needs cool. Only warmth that makes dull wines. It makes very hot wines, but to need a good balanced wine, you need your acidity and your freshness. And that comes from either the sea or from the higher vineyards. So for example, in Campania, which is really south, the province of Naples, white wines are fresh because they are grown 500 meters above sea level. When you come in January, you can ski there. That is something that many people don't realize about Italy and especially the south. Let's see where we go. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay,
we
good.
have enough time.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So, massive amounts of grape varieties, and here the most planted Trebbiano, and it's also grown in France, apparently under Uni Blanc. It gives dull wines, but however, if you limit the yields, then you can make interesting wines, and it counts for most of the wines. Often wine grapes are planted so widely is that you have high yields, and in the past quality was not so important, it was just the yield what was important, because people just drank it every day as much as possible for as cheap as possible. Nowadays, with more focus on less drinking, higher quality, you bring down your yields and you can also make more interesting wines. Then you have Pinot Grigio, mainly grown in the north. Trentino, Alto Adige, or Südtirol, former part of Austria. Quality medium to reasonable, well, I would say low to very good.
Yeah.
And a little interesting note about Pinot Gris, or Grauburgunder as it's called in Germany and France, it has a very low acidity. So Pinot Grigio tends to be a bit sweet.
Did you say it grows in the north?
Yeah, of north of Italy. Nowadays also been in Sicily and other regions, but for a long time it has been planted in Trentino and Alto Adige. Okay. Because these are the two regions where they don't have a lot of autochthonous varieties. Where in Piemonte they have their own, in Toscana they have their own.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it's about. Good. North of Italy, high quality and high production. It's true, they have both. The most famous region is Piemonte, of course known for Barolo, one of the oldest top-level wines of Italy. And it's interesting to see the difference between France and Italy, because Italy has only since recently started producing, well, recently, since 100 years starting to produce very high quality wines, where in Bordeaux they were already making, in the 18th century, very high level wines. And Barolo was, until the 19th century, a sweet wine, so unrecognizable for what we have today as Barolo. So the development of high quality Italian wine is something very recently. And especially for the white wines, which 30 years ago was very difficult to find a decent glass of Italian wine, because they didn't care and didn't have the tradition. So then in Piemonte, what more do we grow? Gavi, which is made with the Cortese grape, which is not mentioned, is Arnijs from the Rero area, and Barbera and Dolcetto, which is not mentioned. Barbera, Nebbiolo and Dolcetto, they are most famous from the Langhe area, where Barolo is a center. And the reason what happened, they make very smart use of their terrains, because when in Barolo you have a vineyard, the best parcel is planted with Nebbiolo to make the Barolo. The intermediate parcel is used for Barbera, and everything that's left they use Dolcetto, because it's less demanding. Nebbiolo is very late ripening, so it needs a very good exposition.
Dolcetto is it also in Italy less popular than the other two, or is it only internationally less known?
No, it's drunk differently. The most Dolcettos are simple pizza wine.
Okay.
If it's, yes, but in Doliani, for
The
example,
one you have?
it is very serious. Because in Doliani, which borders the Barolo area, they use the best vineyards to plant Dolcetto, and they get a whole different.
But Dolcetto means it's sweet?
Yes, it's the grapes are very sweet when you taste them.
Like,
And where Nebbiolo grapes, they're a bit not so nice. Well, they're a bit acid. Then Lombardia from Milan, not much happening wine-wise. They have Pavese, but they don't have a lot of autochthonous stuff. Veneto, well known for Valpolicella and for Amarone, both blended wines, where in Piemonte, I think 90% of the wines is monovarietal, so of one single grape variety. Then in the Veneto area you have also the Amarone wine, which I will explain later when we're going to taste. This is made of partially dried. Ah! Oh! Oh, but it doesn't matter because we're not going to do Amarone, but okay. I didn't know that. Okay. And then these are the main varieties of Veneto, and then of course Prosecco is one of the famous wines of Veneto.
Our Gemra, I think, is also from Veneto.
No, it's from
Trentino.
Trentino. Yeah.
And that is...
Trentino is here.
Oh,
It's in the north. So
Yeah.
north from La Brigarda, you go upwards toward Austria, then you first go in Trentino, and then Alto Adige, which is also known by Südtirol,
Okay.
where they still speak German in Austria.
Yeah.
And the Gemra is a metodo tradizionale, which means it has a second fermentation in bottle, and where most of the Proseccos, they are made by adding just carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So you got still wine, you put in carbon dioxide, and you call it Prosecco.
So our Semla is actually, it's like champagne, but not from champagne.
Exactly. The only difference is the region.
And the grape
And it's the
variety is
same grape varieties,
Yeah.
it has Chardonnay and it has
Yeah.
Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Veneto, for the rest, it has mass production of cheap wine. They're very good. They're very good salespeople. They make a lot of money. Now, Veneto is one of the richest parts of Italy.
Okay.
They have diesel, they have all the brands. They know how to make money here. Friuli, Venezia, Giulia, they have also a couple of local varieties, Friulano, Ribolla Gialla, a couple of other ones. Very experimental region. They do a lot of Venature there, Grava. They started a long time ago. It's a little bit a strange part in Italian wine country. Good. One of the most noble grapes of Italy, Nebbiolo. Famous because of the Barolo and the Barbaresco area. The Barolo Barbaresco is very similar. It's two villages. Barolo is a bigger area, Barbadesco is a bit smaller. It is said to be a bit more feminine, more subtle, but it depends also on the wine grower. The Nebbiolo grape is very, very difficult to grow. It needs a lot of attention in the vineyard, and you will not find it outside of London. They tried it in Australia, America, but it hardly ever succeeds to make a decent wine. And outside of Piemonte, Valtellina is a small part in the north, but that's it.
So why did you use this grape?
Because in the Barolo area, it gives the most fantastic results possible.
Okay.
And also
If
they
it's-
have to because of the, well, in France the AOC, I think here you have DOC.
Yeah, DOCJ or DOC. Yeah.
Okay, so they have to use it if they want to.
Yeah, if you want to make Barolo, you
Yeah.
always need to make 100% Nebbiolo. So very difficult to grow. It is late ripening, so it needs a very long growing season, which is good because it helps to balance the wine with acidity. Other notable, the grape is very tannic and has a lot of acidity. So the reason why they put it, to make Barolo you have to age it for 2 to 3 years on wood. And the reason why they started doing that in the past is because there were so much tannins and they didn't really know how to extract. Tannins are in the skin. In the skin. Yes, a side step. Everybody knows how wine is made, I presume, right?
Yes.
You have the grape, you have the fermentation, the sugar turns into alcohol, and for red wine you extract color and taste from the skins. So since the Nebbiolo has such high amounts of tannins, they put it in wood for a long time, because then you got a process, an interaction with oxygen to make the tannins softer. Traditionally in Italy the wood is large. Botte grande is called in Italian, and so you got the barrique, which is 225 liters, which is traditionally used in France, and in the containers in Italy can be up to 5,000 liters. So you have a very different process. In the 70s, they have started experimenting in Barolo and also the other main areas with barrique, French ones, new oak, which have given a different wine. I don't like it personally because I think the subtlety of the grape variety, it disappears. With Cabernet, it works perfectly in France. With Pinot Noir, it also works perfectly. With Nebbiolo, it changes the nature of the wine. So I'm not a big fan. Good. So Nebbiolo, it's always known for its plum, violets, roses, and tar. Tar is also because of the process in the big barrique, in the big fooder. And after ripening, it gets so-called tertiary smells, which consist of mushroom, licorice, and leather. And indeed, there are two styles, modern and classic. Nowadays, you see that the styles are coming more together. Classic style, as said, would be only with the Botte Grande. Modern style, only new wood, new barrique. Nowadays, people start mixing it a bit to get to the middle ground. Second famous grape of Piemonte, but also widely planted in Italy, is Barbera. Barbera, just like Nebbiolo, very high in acidity. Medium tannins, so it's more juicy as wine. Aromas of red fruits, cherries. In the 80s, they started also to experiment to make Barbera in wood as a result, because Barbera was always considered a bit of a simple grape. And now, when you age it in wood, you get like a wine with more appeal, so you can ask more money. So then the wines of 50, 80 euros Barbera also came on the market, which previously was unheard of. Dolcetto is not mentioned, but if you treat it well, it can have the same structure as the other two. And
would you say Dolcetto is more black fruit or more red fruit?
it's more, indeed, it's more black fruit.
Black fruit.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Then we skip some regions and we come to Toscana, one of my favorite areas. Completely different from Piemonte. It has sea, it has history, it has a lot of things to offer.
Everything.
Yes, although the people can be a bit
Arrogant or not?
yes, to say the least. And it is interesting because Toscana and Piemonte are the two the most important wine regions in Italy. They provide one Barolo from the north, and Toscana is Brunello di Montalcino, Bolgheri. These are the highest regarded wines in Italy. The funny thing is the mentality is very different. Where in Piemonte it's very difficult to find anything of international grape varieties, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot. Toscana is full of it. And they started.
Kun je het zien dan?
Oh, zit ik? Ja.
Anders kun je even voor mij komen zitten hoor, want ik ben bang. Keesje doet het nou dus. En jij bent vandaag.
Ja, maar ja, dat maakt
Maar
niet
die
uit.
zit daar.
Good. So Toscana has a different mentality. They sell everything as long as it sells. And Piemonte are more attached to their land. So Piemonte's wine grower will be very hard pressed to sell his land. If you go to a Tuscan farmer, he will give you, if you get the right price, you can buy everything. So Sangiovese, the main grape variety of Toscana, it is also grown in large parts of Italy, but only in Toscana it gets the highest possible level. So where it's grown in Chianti, there are 8 subzones of Chianti. Chianti Rufina, Chianti Polisinese, Chianti etc, etc, etc. But the heartland is Chianti Classico. And Chianti Classico zone is between Florence and Siena, here in Siena. This is the Classico area, which means like the original area where it was grown and potentially the best area where it was grown. In the past, of course, Chianti was known for the fiasco. You always see in the pizzerias, the beautiful bottle. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore because I really like it.
That was the name, fiasco.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fiasco.
It was a fiasco because what's inside was terrible, but no, it's called the fiasco.
What does it mean in Italian?
I'm not sure actually. It probably has to do with the with the thing, the pie around.
And maybe we call something a fiasco because of the wine?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, in Spanish it's the same meaning, eh? Fiasco. Fiasco is fiasco in Spanish.
Disaster, right?
Yeah, it's like a
I
fail,
think also
completely
in
fail.
Italian.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We were
Maybe the Italian people didn't know, and the Spanish say, hey, let's call it fiasco.
Because it sounds, yeah, I don't know, it sounds better.
Okay.
And then the last zone where Sangiovese is grown, well, is both Pinot Noble di Montepulciano, is also Sangiovese, and Brunello di Montalcino, where Brunello is the local dialect for Sangiovese, and it's the only region where it's mandatory to have 100% Sangiovese. Whereas Chianti Classico, Chianti always consists of a minimum of 60-70% added with different either international or national varieties. Good, Sangiovese, high tannin and acidity, not as tannic as Nebbiolo though, and it also depends a bit on the growing area. Montalcino, where the Brunello comes from, is very ripe. It's actually the best climate to grow Sangiovese. In the other regions, it's very difficult to get full maturity, full ripeness. Medium body, indeed, it's never full, red cherry plum, spicy, herbs, thyme, and it can be either aged in wood or just be drunk fresh. And then there is a difference. If you do Brunello di Montalcino, there's a minimum 2 years wood aging, and for the Chianti, it depends. This is interesting, super Tuscans. In the 50s, 60s, Sassicaia, the owner, he had a beautiful house near the sea in Toscana. and he made a bit of wine for him and family. But he knew also a famous enologue, and he said, "Your terrain looks like the terrain from Bordeaux. You should try and plant the Bordeaux varieties, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc." He did that, and later he decided also to use the method of traditional French method of winemaking with the barrique. That resulted in Sassicaia, and it used to be one of the most amazing wines of Italy. Unfortunately, now, in my humble opinion, it's not as good anymore because it's very commercial. They bought extra land, and the excitement of the earlier vintages, it has disappeared.
We have one in Breda, I don't know which year exactly, but for your idea, it costs €350.
Yeah, it is very expensive. It is very expensive. So they are the one, and the interesting why they're called Super Tuscans, because they did not fit the mold of the original Italian wine law. So they were labeled Vino di Tavola, which is the lowest possible denomination for wine, but it turned out to be the most expensive one because they were the most sought after. The same happened in the Chianti area, where they made Tianello, also Super Tuscan, but made from pure Sangiovese. In the 80s, it was not allowed to make a pure Sangiovese Chianti, but many producers felt that they could make a better wine when it was pure Sangiovese. So they got outside the DOC system. They made their wine Vino di Tavola, they made it 100% Sangiovese, and that is the second part of the Super Tuscans.
Really smart to call it Super Tuscan.
Yeah.
Italians are marketing. They're very good.
Make money.
Yeah. So that has changed. These two wines have changed the Italian wine world.
So these are not DOC, they're just Super Tuscans, like another
They're
denomination. Yeah,
You can still
okay.
read it. It's Vino di Tavola. Now Sassicaia has its own DOC because they changed the law, but they really revolutionized. Thank you very much. the Italian wine scene, and also because they introduced the barrique in Italy, where before everybody used Botte Grande, they introduced the barrique, and well, according to me, Sangiovese and Nebbiolo, it doesn't work. For other Cabernet in Tuscany can be beautiful, can be as good or better as in Bordeaux. Good, then for some reason we go to Marche and Abruzzo. Yeah, most famous wine from Marche, which is on the other coast, the Adriatic coast. It's white, Verdicchio, and Castigliese is the most famous. It's not a very well known. I don't know why they choose Verdicchio actually and not maybe. There's some other stuff. Not much is, well, nowadays there is, but before not much was happening there. Then under the Marche you got the Abruzzo area. Abruzzo was well known for supermarket wines, very cheap. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, €3, €3.50, €4, Albert Heijn, wherever. Nowadays they are discovering that the grape variety is very interesting if you give it the right attention. And Abruzzo is a beautiful area. It's not densely populated, but it's mountains and coast. It's really worth going there. People are extremely nice, and the food is also good. Verdicchio, high acidity, medium body, medium to full, I would say. Lemon, fennel, almonds, it depends also a bit of the vinification, whether you use wood or whether you use stainless. That also impairs flavors as a result on the winemaking. Good. Now we come to the south. The south of Italy, the Mezzogiorno, it starts below Rome. And the main provinces would be Campania from Naples, Calabria, Puglia, Sicily, and Sardinia. It is a different part of Italy. It is a different tradition. It has been very long under, Campania has been long under Spanish rule. Sicily has been under rule of Normans, Spaniards, Greeks. You cannot imagine how many people have conquered Sicily. So it is a large melting pot. Interesting, they always have kept their own grape varieties. The most important from the Campania, from the western part is Aleanico. Primitivo is the dominant grade of Puglia, and it is known in the US as Zinfandel. You have one at Breda and Guts, which is the Moyo, 57 Moyo, is 57. That is pure Primitivo.
When you tried it in the actually, yeah, we tried it in Mayo. We had good tastes. But was the Primitivo was it the chapter or
American
was not a
maybe
chapter.
international? Cannot.
It was not a chapter yet.
It was not
A
rated.
chapter. No, it was not a chapter.
I just brought it.
Yeah.
Just one taste.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but that's a nice wine.
First lesson, maybe. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so we tried it. Yeah.
Good. So Aleanico mainly planted in Campania and in Basilicata in the south. Works very well with volcanic soils. Also, just like Nebbiolo, very high acidity, very high tannins, very deeply colored, has a long ripening season, and you really need to do your best not to get a tanning ball. It's a difficult grape, it's really, but it's beautiful. Good. Well, for some reason we go back to Montepulciano. So this is still Abruzzo, which we had before. Also intense wine, black pepper, raisin, jam, spices indeed. It's very tannic as well. Many acidity, much acidity, alcohol, medium high tannins. Cheap wines. Some are cheap, some are.
You can say maybe a little bit overall red wine from Italy is high in tannins and high in acidity.
Yes. One of the when you have blind tasting, it's pretty easy to recognize Italian wines because of their acidity.
Yeah.
I always get them from their acidity, unless they're really pushed very to be over white. But normally that's easier to. But then it's become difficult to say Sangiovese or Nebbiolo. Color says a lot because Sangiovese and Nebbiolo have a very light color, and that's also interesting why they started working with Barrique. Barrique gives color to wines, and people don't like light wines. If you give two same glasses, two same wines, one with a bit of coloring, everybody will choose the darker wine, even though it's the same wines. But they just look at the color and say it's dark, so it's better. Light wines are, they're often thought of as cheap and not interesting. So Montepulciano, not only cheap wines nowadays, interesting stuff happening there. Also the Vin Natural business. Good, Aleanico. Basilicata and Campania are the two main regions. In Campania it's grown inland, so it's grown high, it's on the slope. Whereas I was in Campania in January and you can ski there. That's where they also grow their Aleanico. Very intense color, a lot of anthocyanins, the colorings and the alcohol stuff. Very full body, massive acidity because of the very long ripening season and the cool nights, so the difference between night and day temperature, which adds to complexity and acidity. And it is indeed black fruits, but it's also very spicy. And then it depends indeed how you do it with the bottom or the barrique for the rest of the things. Then Primitivo, originally from Croatia, crossed over to Puglia, and later, I guess, a lot of Italian immigrants to the US took it with them and started to make it in Zinfandel. Again, intense in color, very full body, high in alcohol, which always gives it a bit of a sweet sentiment because alcohol gives a sweet perception. Not only sugar, also alcohol. It gives roundness to wine. And it balances acidity and balances tannins. So there's a balance in wine with 3 parts: bitterness from the tannin, sweetness from the residual sugar and alcohol, and the freshness from the acidity. Blackberries, plum is a very good one. Indeed, licorice, clove, and yeah, they make something disgusting from it, semi-sweet. Some people like it. Yeah. And yeah, quality wines, well, they make good wines, but they may also make cheaper. Good, some general information about label terms. Bianco means white, also red, well, Rosato Rosé, that seems all clear. Cantina Sociale is a cooperative.
Ah, okay. You know,
Yeah.
cooperative, you know how it works? What it means?
Yeah.
What do you
So the corporation is a group of farmers that come together and say, instead of they all have small plots of land, basically too small to make wine themselves. So they say, okay, we gotta put money together, we buy a place where we can process the grapes and make the wine together. So everybody is a social part of the yes, of the
So they have
exploitation.
their own vineyards and then they make it together or something. or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they share the exploitation.
Yeah.
Cembra is also
Okay.
it's a cooperative.
Okay, crochet also from the
Yeah, indeed. It's in the past people they looked down on corporation because the quality was not as good. But nowadays they have really high level wines. The most famous one is actually the Produttori di Barbaresco, which really make one of the best operations in the world.
What is avocado?
Avocado amabile. I think it's like amabile is semi-sweet. I think. So dolce is sweet,
design, yeah.
amabile is pleasant, and I guess it's semi-sweet.
Okay.
Frizzante is like you put carbon dioxide in your wine. Often it comes with a screw cap, not with the mushroom. Then the spumante is the more serious stuff. These are not legal terms though. Spumante is not a legal term.
Does also frizzante mean like semi-sparkling, like not heavy?
It has a lower pressure than
Resulting
spumante. Yeah. So it's a bit in between, but it's always sparkling. Ripasso doesn't mean re-fermentation, but second passage. And ripasso is only made in Valpolicella, and it is a very smart recycling of material, because what they do, Amarone is made from dried grapes. After the harvest they dry them for 2 to 3 months, so you get concentration. And the Amarone smells therefore rich, have more sugar, more acidity, because the water evaporates. After the Amarone wine is pressed, they use the leftover and put Valpolicella over it. So the Valpolicella extracts from the leftovers of the open Amarone, that's why they call it ripasso. So it is a fuller styled
So the
Valpolicella.
leftovers of the Amarone and just new red wine mixes.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
get
So
rid of the flavor.
they pass the Valpolicella over the leftover of the Amarone, so to extract the last bits of the skins. Passito means dried. It's used very often in Italy to make sweet wine, either red or white. Passito is always sweet. It's made from dried grapes. It's dried it's even further dried than Amarone, and therefore it's also sweet. Novello is like Beaujolais Nouveau, young wine, uninteresting.
Right away.
Yes. And then the 3 most common denominations, Superiore, Classico, and Riserva. Not in all regions it's used. For example, the Superiore, Classico, you can have them in Valpolicella, but Superiore you will not find in Barolo. You will find Riserva and Barolo. Superiore normally means a alcohol level 0.5 or 1% more than the standard requirements. So every region in Italy or in France also has a minimum level of alcohol required, often 10.5, 11%. Nowadays it's hardly necessary anymore because it's warmer and people know how to drink wine. But in the olden days, wines could be 10.5%, and it's not so nice. So you need at least a certain basic level. And then they created Superiore, which is potentially a better wine because it's riper. Classico means it comes from the original zone. So many zones have a classical zone where it started, and then later the zone became bigger and non-classical. It's always often also the best parts of the land, which is classical. Riserva means aged. Normally you make normal wine, you make a Riserva. Riserva is 1 or 2 years extra in in bottle or in pipe or in wood, and it also implies a higher quality level. I think we finished in Italy.
Zal ik wil je eens Spanje?
Ik had het niet bekeken, dus misschien.
Okay, I will continue a little bit with Spain.